Welcome along this Friday morning. Cancer, cricket and career, the three C's of Martin Crowe's life, the three elements that provide essentially the bedrock of Martin Crowe's second book, simply called Raw, launched last night at his old school, Auckland Grammar, in front of a collection of family, friends and more than a few of his old schoolmates and cricketing mates and All Blacks there as well. It was a very emotional launch for a very emotional book, unusual for a superstar of sport in this country to go so deep into his own soul and document his fears, his insecurities, collectively, if you like, the less appealing side of himself over his 50 years, written by himself. It's his book, written by Martin Crowe, called Raw, and he joins me now. Martin, good morning. Thank you for your time. Appreciate
morning,
it.
Yeah.
You recovered from last night?
Yeah, it was a bit of a restless night. I was kind of overwhelmed, as you could see, with the fact that really for 8 months I've been in lockdown at home. Just one or two have popped in, obviously, on a regular basis. But to be in front of, as you said, all those very important people in my life was a wonderful feeling. But it did bring out the emotion, which I thought I had under control as you go into something like that. And clearly I hadn't, but we got there, and I felt grateful that people were patient with me and that they had come along.
Well, your publisher, for what it's worth, said to me this morning that 2 or 3 people approached him after your speech last night who have suffered from depression and cancer and said your speech last night was inspiring. So there we are. It's
nice.
Already paying a dividend. You're looking well and you're sounding well, which in some ways seems a little bit at odds with some of the dire medical diagnosis about your health and future in the book. But I think since the book was published, a few weeks ago, you've had some very good news about your health, haven't you?
Yes, I have. The first news is that I got through chemotherapy, and gee, it's hard to describe the 5 months, but it just got worse and worse. And really, about 20 days ago, I was at the bottom of a shower just bawling my eyes out that I'd had enough of the side effects of nausea and constipation and the tinnitus in my head and so on. And losing my voice, actually. My voice just kept disappearing for 10 days at a time. And then the news of the scan that I had, and the hematologist telling me that I had an excellent response, that all through my left side the lymph nodes have gone back to their normal size, and the big tumour that I grew over the Taylor affair from nothing in 20 days, which was 4 by 3 centimetres, had reduced down to basically 1.5 centimetres.
So you're absolutely convinced that whole disruptive, turbulent period of New Zealand cricket, the sacking of Ross Taylor, and I know he's a friend of yours and you've had a lot to do with him, that compounded your cancer?
Yes, I was sitting in what they call the wait and watch group, where my follicular lymphoma was sitting still. It wasn't dividing and multiplying, and my follicular lymphoma is indolent and non-aggressive. And I thought I dodged a bullet. And on November 29, my hematologist said, whatever you're doing, keep it going. I'll see you in 3 months. On December the 2nd, which was the Sunday, Ross rang me, and I just...
Was he home?
He was home. He just got home. He had not spoken to me apart from sharing in a text that things weren't too good. But basically 5 words.
Yeah.
And he unloaded in this conversation on December the 2nd, and I was in shock initially because he wanted to give away cricket, and then I said, please just relax and be with your family and leave it with me. And I contacted the CEO and the chairman, and I got embroiled in an email exchange for the next couple of days, and that's by the by. But
you got stressed out.
I became incredibly angry, and probably the angriest I've ever been in my life. And it was a stupid thing to do in my condition. Now, fast forward, if you like, to Christmas Eve, and I'm suffering incredible stomach pain. It happens again on Boxing Day and then on New Year's Day. So I rushed back to Auckland. I was up north, and before I know it, I'm in hospital, and I'm in there for 2 days because I can't stand up, and I've got this pain that's constant. They take a scan of me, and they find this basically 12 centimetre 4 by 3 shaped egg pressing my duodenum, which is in the stomach, and they say that it's come from nowhere because it's not on my scan that was in November. So we just put two and two together, and that was that my anger, my negative emotion, my response to a fight that wasn't even mine. But of course, as I explained to Lorraine, it just conjured up 20 years of this suppressed negative anger towards this organisation that I had devoted a lot of my life to, and literally I couldn't stomach what was happening to Ross, and ultimately I was hospitalised and rushed into chemotherapy, for the next 5 months. Well, boy, you could have imagined how guilty I felt to put Lorraine and everyone through what I was about to embark on, which was 5 months of chemotherapy. In fact, I got to the Mercy Hospital steps and collapsed. I said, I can't do it. I was just so distraught, and she just led me in, and of course I was led out, if you like, by the completion of it just a few days ago.
Interesting. Very good. Thank you, Martin. We'll be back with more from Martin Crowe. We've got a couple of copies of his book to give away, which we'll give away to a caller. We'll take some calls as well. If you'd like to put a call to Martin, you can do so. We'll have a chat to him about one or two other things. In fact, we could talk to him here for 2 hours. There's so much in this book, but we'll try and get through as much as we can. It is 13 minutes after 9. Back in a moment with Martin Crowe and Raw in 2 minutes. Guest this morning after the launch of his book, Raw, last night. Martin, can we get to the book and get to some cricket? I want to start, oddly enough, at the end. I want to read out the last 24 words of your book. Here we go. Cricket gave me the tools, the lessons and the experience. But after 50 years, it won't anymore. Goodbye, cricket. Thanks for the memories. End of book. So do we take it from that you are completely done with cricket now, forever, in every form?
Right now I have to walk away from the game. Even watching us getting bowled for 68 at Lord's had an effect on me, and I just can't turn it off. It's an addiction. I'm like an alcoholic. I mean, it's been in my blood, since I could walk, since I lifted a bat at the age of 5, and as much as I'd love to still, enjoy turning the telly on to watch Ross bat or New Zealand playing a test match, I actually can't. I can't do it. It's not healthy for me, not now.
Don't you miss it?
Well, I still look at Cricinfo, or I'm up in 2 o'clock in the morning watching some of the ICC stuff, but, I'm not engaging in it, and I'm trying to turn my mind off from my analytical side, which is, my natural sort of default to go to. But, I can't even get into coaching. I don't want to commentate anymore. I don't really want to write about it. And so I've just drawn the line in the sand, and I've said what I've said in the book. This is it. Goodbye. Thank you. But Lorraine did give it a rider. She did say to me just a couple of days ago that, Marty, you'll go to Cornwall Park, which is where Dad's ashes are, and you'll sit there and you'll see a young boy batting, and you'll fall in love with it again, and that may be the start where you can step out and maybe help a youngster, which is really all I've ever wanted to do since I've retired, is help a young player fulfill his dreams, and I've been lucky and privileged to help Ross in that regard. But even we are really finished in terms of what I can do to help him. He's 29 anyway, and he's on his way. Yeah.
I'm not scratching your back here because you've come into the studio this morning, but I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say you are one of the best cricket commentators around on television. In any company, in any broadcast, you bring something special. And Yoni and Smith, a fantastic team. And it seems a great pity that we're never going to hear your analysis, as you put it, again on cricket. You don't think in 5 years maybe you might think, wow, I wouldn't mind getting back there now that I'm over this and my life is back together again, I'm back in normality, I want to get back into cricket. Do you discount that possibility?
I guess I don't, but would it have to be on radio, Brendan, because I can't see me ever being employed by Sky again.
Yeah, we'll get to that shortly. Yeah.
And, I got sacked as the executive producer of cricket because I made a comment.
On Radio Sport, wasn't it?
It was. It was with my great friend Doug Golightly, and it was the truth. And, in fact, what I said turned out to be right a few days later. But, that's the thing, is that I've sort of done a lot of commentary, and I just want to communicate now a new story and a new set of lessons that I've learned and experienced. And I guess that's in the wider field of health and healing and well-being and wellness. That's where I want to now spend my time, not talking about techniques and batting stances and grips. And I'm kind of bored with it all. I think I'm done there. But certainly, you know...
But you've got a talent. I mean, in this life, if you have a talent, aren't you supposed to make the most of it? And whether you like it or not, cricket is your talent.
It was. And as I said, I want to move on to... I've got to find a new volition in my life, and I want to, you know, I've got to get a job soon, and I want to be able to try in the field of health and wellness. And so that's where I'm heading.
Can we go back to those early days? From about the age that you were 14 through until you were around about 20, by which stage you're in the New Zealand team, you played in a number of underage rep teams, often with kids a lot older than you and with adults a lot older than you. And you make it into the New Zealand team when you're 19. And mentally and psychologically, as you state in the book, you couldn't cope, overwhelmed with fear and ongoing sense of failure. And then you ran into problems with people like Jeff Howarth, the captain, and living probably a life that very few teenagers experienced. Do you feel that missing out on your normal teenage development has had a lasting effect on your life?
Absolutely, yeah, I really do. I think, perhaps there are two things to focus on there, and that is that at the age of 14 or 15, it was in the middle of 77, I'm a year 10, fourth former at grammar, and I'm picked in the under-23 team. And I go to Dunedin, and I have a very humiliating experience. In isolation, no biggie, but it was an experience. And that's in detail in the book. And then I get picked for the under-20s, and then the New Zealand secondary schools team, and then Young New Zealand at the age of 17. Now, and not one of those teams did I score 50 until I got to the New Zealand secondary schools team in my last year at school. I failed every time.
And they all getting picked.
And the selectors kept saying, it'll be a good experience for the wee lad, for the young lad.
And they stuck with you.
Now, I have a theory that they should have been picking my brother, but he had buggered off to Adelaide, disillusioned with the way he didn't get opportunities here in Auckland, couldn't even hardly make the Cornwall rep side, or the club side. And so they decided on the next one in the family. And it was extraordinary, really, that I was in these teams at the age of 15. And, of course, all I did was feed the fear that I had, and am I good enough, from trying to compete with Jeff in the backyard, which was, again, in isolation, a natural course of events where I'm trying to live up to my brother's expectations. I'm trying to get the attention and love of my brother. It then went into these teams, and then when I got to the New Zealand cricket team and Jeff Howarth, I just collapsed completely.
So what was your issue with Howarth? Why did you dislike him so intensely?
Well, now that I know what Jeff was going through in his own life, I have totally forgiven everything. I mean, it's if I met him today, I would embrace him as a good person and as a fine cricketer. He was a really good captain. What happened was just a series of events where in my second one-day international, I didn't bat in the first one, but in my second one in Dunedin, I'm down to bat at 6 or 7, and then basically within minutes of the umpires going out, I'm told to bat at 3 because John Reid, I think, had a back injury. And it was done in a really callous way, and I failed, and then I was told to bat at 3 in the next game, and I was in second ball. John Wright got out to Tomo first ball, and I failed. And then in the test series, I got 9, 2, 0, 9. So at no stage did Jeff ever really sit me down and encourage me. He just basically yelled at me from across the dressing room, if you're a show pony, and if you're good enough, you're old enough, kind of thing. And so it was just Jeff. It was just Jeff dealing with his stuff, and I shouldn't have taken it to heart, Brendan, but I did, and that manifested a problem.
Just getting to the cricket there, so you're dealing with all of this kind of emotional upheaval off the field and issues with these men a lot older than you. Then when you finally get out to the wicket as a 19-year-old playing for New Zealand, you're facing Lillian Thompson, and you admit in your book you had no idea what to do, right?
Look, I'd never worn a helmet, so that was the first thing, to wear a helmet. I didn't like the chin strap, so when Tomo was hitting me in the back of the head, the helmet was flying off at the Basin Reserve.
Were you scared?
Yeah. I was scared with Jeff Thompson and Dennis Lilly. Of course I was scared. It was just a shock. I was in panic. I ran myself out. Or maybe Jeff didn't want to move. Jeff Howard didn't want to move from the other end. So I was just, it was a total blur that I was in. And then, thankfully a year later, my brother came home, or months later came home, and he took my place. And so I went back to Auckland, and I just enjoyed batting again. And then within 6 months, I was back in the New Zealand side. This went on for 2 years, where I really failed. And in the end, I went to sports psychology, and I studied it to try and deal with how do I get out of this hole.
Did it work?
Yes, I learned visualization, and I learned how to concentrate on a ball-by-ball basis. I learned about affirmations, and I learned how to remove negatives. And I spent my waking hours, and probably a lot of my subconscious hours, living and breathing, how do I cope with the next ball and against all these bowlers. And when teammates saw me bugger off to my room at 8 o'clock after a meal, and they didn't, I disconnected with them because I just was in so much fear of failing and of humiliation again that I just had to spend time sorting my head out. It was doing me in. And then I got into a period where I was coping well, and I got the confidence and the belief.
But then you had an issue again, didn't you, in the New Zealand team with a guy called John Bracewell?
Yes.
And do you think the difficulties you had with your relationship with Bracewell, who you accuse in the book of bullying tactics towards you, did that affect your relationship some years later when you were the producer of Sky's cricket and Bracewell was the coach of the Black Caps? Did it affect your relationship, professional relationship?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it was stupid of me to react as I did as a player. No one else had the problem. Braces was Braces. He was determined and competitive and fiery, and he took it out on some of his teammates. But it wasn't wrong. It was just different. And I took it personally. And this was, again, me just struggling with the emotions of it, not grown up at all, not mature. When I got to become executive producer, I really tried to bury it. And I emailed him and I said, I'm so delighted you're the coach, and can I help with any of the batters? And, I really opened up to him, and I said I'd like to. And gradually, as I saw the team unravel, and one or two players, one by one, Astle and Lou Vincent, come to me and just say, I cannot play under this man, did I start to then conjure up all of the old silly stuff. And in the end, he blacklisted me from talking to anyone, and it was sad.
But didn't you blacklist him as well? Wasn't there a story? I don't know whether you came up in the book, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall that in your role as the executive producer of cricket, the word went out, hey guys, we're not speaking to Bracewell.
Yes, it's in the book, and I said it to a journo, and it was a kind of a bullish comment. It was a stupid comment. And he put it, as a good journo, he put it in print. And I went, and I never lived out the threat that I would not interview him. We continued to interview John Bracewell, but it was a stupid fascist comment that I regretted, and it just showed how I was thinking again and how it would easily come up from deep within. And sadly, we never saw eye to eye. And in the end, I lost my job at Sky because I made a comment about Bracewell on the radio.
We'll get to that in a moment. Yes, that's the other C in Martin's life. His career, 13 years at Sky. It doesn't sound like it was always a terribly happy period in Martin Crowe's life. More on that in just a moment, 28 minutes after 9, and we'll take a few calls shortly as well. You're with the Radio Sport. It's exactly 9:30 here this morning. Martin Crowe, our guest for the first hour after the launch of his book last night. Raw, very appropriate name. But before we get into this interesting period of Martin's life at Sky, which is, again, quite extraordinary, some of the revelations he makes and some of the observations about people he worked with and the bosses and the direction that Sky Television goes in. There's a caller here, Dax, who wants to talk, I think, a bit about stress of being in the public eye. Good morning, Dax.
Good morning. How are you going there, fellas?
We're fine.
Morning.
Look, I can only wish you good health, Martin. I hope everything goes all right for you.
Thank you.
Look, in the music industry, you've got the Madonnas of the world that embrace and use and get used by the media, which has its negative and positive aspects, I guess. And then on the other end of the scale, you've probably got someone like Bob Dylan that would hire a stunt double at an airport to avoid it. Given hindsight being a wonderful thing, and perhaps for your future, Martin, would you look back and would you do anything differently and go more down the Dylan route to bring less stress to your life?
Yeah, it would be nice, definitely. But at the age of 19, and for the next 30 odd years, I've been in the spotlight, and I've been in a public role of playing and captaining New Zealand, and then in television with commentary. So I just haven't been able to hide from it. I mean, I can assure you that I have turned down 99% of opportunities to speak in the public. I've tried to be very private in that, I'm not available all the time. I've tried to just do my role, as in my role at Sky, and keep my life to myself. But it's just not possible. And I feel in this case, with the book, that it's a story that needs to be told, because I think unless it's told, the lessons aren't going to be used or learnt. And I feel that there is some messages there that I can share from this point on. And it's also helped me a lot in my healing. So it is what it is. But, I guess sometimes I think if I'd had a different life, and just worked in a bank and raised 3 or 4 kids, and it would have been nice too.
Okay, Dak, thanks for your call. 27 minutes away from 10. So your cricket career finishes, and then down the road you become a producer at Sky, and you become the executive producer of Sky. You were there for 13 years. You made an interesting comment last night in your speech, how it was like entering into a cool chamber, not a lot of unity and teamwork and other things. Anyway, things were going swimmingly for you as the cricket producer, until one day the bosses called you in their office and said, Martin, you're fired because of something you've alluded to this morning. You said here on Radio Sport about a New Zealand program, I think it was called Leading Teams, which you didn't like. Why did Sky TV fire you for something you said on radio which had nothing to do or was anything about Sky Television?
Don't know. I don't know. I just, as said in the book, I just think that the CEO kind of snapped. He's very big, as I was to find out. And I had heard him once, I think 3 years earlier, talk about cheerleading New Zealand cricket. That's what we're there for. And yes, we're there to tell, promote the sport that we're covering. No question about that. But the sport was not promoting itself very well, and I felt that in the case of John Bracewell bringing in this Leading Teams, that enough was enough for these youngsters. I wasn't in the dressing room, but I was told by, in fact, Roger Mortimer told me, and I revealed it on air. And it was a mistake. I apologised for it because I was speaking as a former captain, and I was on holiday.
So you agree there was a conflict of interest there?
Look, I'm an executive producer of Sky, and my role is to work with New Zealand cricket. And from 1999, when I had started the job with Chris Doig and Martin Snedden, I had forged a good relationship based on that. John Follett received 2 letters.
Weren't New Zealand cricket being too sensitive here? Because it turns out in your book that you reveal that it was New Zealand cricket that were unhappy with your comments here on Radio Sport, and so they go to Sky and says jump, and Sky jumps all over you. And I'm thinking, it doesn't reflect terribly well on either Sky or New Zealand cricket, does it? I mean, Sky seems so almost paranoid that they might lose the cricket contract, that they don't want to get offside with New Zealand cricket, so they throw you under the bus. But there's no one else in New Zealand television that would pay the sort of money that Sky can for the cricket rights. So they're never going to lose the cricket rights, are they, if they don't want to? And yet they seemed so sensitive to the criticisms of New Zealand cricket, they went after you.
Yeah, I was distraught that I didn't get a second chance or even a warning, really. I mean, I just got nailed. And if I'd made mistakes in the past, like, for example, the Bracewell comment, or the comment about not interviewing him, then I was never informed or warned about that was poor behaviour from an executive producer. And so that was it. It was just, I was gone.
But then in a very peculiar thing, they turn around and say, look, we're going to fire you as a cricket producer, but we want you to go on air as a cricket commentator.
I didn't get that at all. And I said so. Here's the thing I think happened, is that I had for 3 or 4 years gone to John Follett on July the 1st in my diary, and I'd said, John, is there something else I can do in Sky? I just need a break. It's been 7 years. I loved working under Kevin Cameron, but I was in the middle of a family situation, which is not easy in a corporate environment. And I just said, is there something else I can do? And he said, I'll keep it in mind. Well, there was nothing really that he obviously felt I could do. until I made a mistake, and then he just said, right, you can go and run the rugby channel. And that was a real blow to me, because I didn't see the rugby channel as anything special. I thought it was a demotion. It certainly wasn't a promotion, because the pay stayed the same.
What do they call it? A sideways promotion?
And then the commentary comment just kind of, I don't know. In the end, I gave up mediation, and I just decided to cop it on the chin, take the opportunity to do something different, and I embraced the rugby channel wholly. It disappointed Lorraine that rugby was back on the table, with respect to her former husband. But I gave it my best, the rugby channel. I loved it. In fact, the people I worked with, the Keith Quinns and Steve Davies, and
speaks very highly of you.
I mean, they were probably the 3 best years of my time at Sky in a funny way.
Getting back to Sky, you later on in the chapter, there's a quite revealing chapter about Sky where you fire some fairly heavy broadsides at them. You accuse Sky TV of, quote, becoming nothing more than a cheerleader for New Zealand cricket, and all that matters is the bottom line. Do you still think that's the view of Sky? Is that your view now? Is that the case when you look at Sky TV now? Cheerleader for New Zealand cricket?
Yes, I think it's very clear that they want all of the sports productions to be 100% positive.
Because they never really touched the Taylor Hesson thing, did they?
No.
The commentators didn't touch it.
And I think that it just all comes down to the fact that as a public company, because that's when really the mood of Sky changed, when we became a public company, and budgets and bottom line and cutting out the excess fat and creativity went out the window. That's really, for me, when the fun went out of working at Sky, as opposed to or compared to the time when Nate Smith was, and Sky were losing a lot of money at that time as well, because they were a very new company. But when we became public, the rules changed, and communication stopped, and basically you were boxed into your own little silo of, there's your budget, deal with it, and don't you dare say a word about negatively about the sport you're covering. And that's not always easy. 99% of the time you are promoting the sport, and we were promoting the sport. And every now and then you do need a reminder. But to be sacked over one mistake, I really struggled with. And I really struggled with, I suppose, working there from that moment on. And it was a huge relief to leave last year.
Okay, another caller here, I think, also wants to get on the business of stress. Mark, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. My late mum died of stomach cancer, so I kind of understand part of what you've been through in the last little while. But what it did bring up when you're talking about the Ross Taylor affair is just how easy stress can influence our body and, the way we cope with life.
Yes.
Going forward, what have you learned and what will you be trying to do to minimise stress in your life?
Mark, I throw myself into counselling on a very regular basis, and to learn the tools of healing and of particularly probably self-acceptance.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the one thing I have not done very well, is to accept myself, even to have a little bit of warmth towards myself. I have beaten myself up over mistakes and over things that I've done. I've gone too far. And so I've learnt that really all I have to focus on is the positive emotions of love and compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and practice those on a daily basis. So I meditate a hell of a lot, because my mind is not to be trusted. I have to get in there and rip that stuff out on a regular basis. And that's going to be a work in progress. The work starts now, really. And so I want to share that. That'll help me to live what I want to share, and that's the only way I'm going to be happy going forward.
Thank you, Mark. Time running out here, Martin. Just a couple of things before we finish. Can we get back to the future of cricket? I know you don't want to have much to do with it at the moment, but you've got some interesting ideas. You would like to see a Test championship being basically the highest point of the pyramid for world cricket, rather than the 50-over World Cup we have at the moment.
Well, Test cricket to me is the pinnacle of the game. It's the real game of cricket. It tests everything about you as a cricketer and as a cricketing nation. And it staggers me that we've never been able to create a structure around Test cricket. So the Test Championship is the name you would give to it, if you like. We can, under the Futures Tour program, actually play, if you like, a tennis draw, quarter-final, semi-final, final. There are 4 series
so
going
there's
on.
eight countries in it.
I'm saying the top 8 teams qualify based on the rankings and all the games that are played. And there are normally now, under the Futures Tour program, in November through to February, 4 series going on involving the top 8 teams. Make them a quarter-final, give them a tag. Whoever wins the series or a designated test match goes to the semi-final to be played in September in England, which is a neutral venue. The most neutral venue in the world is England. Play the semi and the final in 2 weeks, promote the hell out of it, and have a champion every year. And if you can't do it every year, have it every 2 years. What they propose to do in 2015 is have the top 4 play a semi and a final. 4 teams, 3 games every 4 years. That's not a competition.
No,
that is a token waste of time.
Yeah.
The World Cup, I think, still has legs. I would keep it, but you cannot have 3 formats in the world today because the weaker teams, like New Zealand and the West Indies, they will not play good Test cricket while they're also having to deal with the resources and the time that it takes to prepare a team for one-day cricket and 2020 cricket internationally. So one format has to go, and I'm saying 2020 cricket is not cricket. It is a exhibition game. It is a carnival game.
Is this the guy that discovered Max?
This is the guy that
discovered Max cricket.
That beats himself up now
putting the boot into 2020. Okay.
Guilty as charged. Yeah. And it's weird, isn't it? That it started with us in the chief exec. Yeah, weird.
The other thing I just want to touch on here is, which surprised me, because I suppose I have a different view on this, you don't seem to be a big fan of the present mechanisms of the DRS system and the way it operates. Personally, I couldn't bear the thought of going back to the bad old days without it, but you have issues. What are your issues with it?
Well, the issues are that the DRS has become a strategic and tactical tool for the teams, for a captain. They have 2 challenges, or unsuccessful challenges, so they play 50-50 with it. And this goes on and on and on, and they're disregarding the premise of what technology is there for, is to protect the umpire. It's not for a gain in the game. That, to me, goes against actually the spirit of the game.
So you only want one.
So I'm saying that players know when a howler is made. They know, and that's when they go and use the system to protect the umpire, who's travelling all around the world, as they are, standing out there all the time, but the players aren't. They get rests in between, when they're not batting or bowling, or the case may be. Umpires are out there the whole time. They are also ageing. They are also, they're under pressure and scrutiny. This is a tough being protected. And the captains are too busy worrying about their tactics.
We'll take one final call in a moment. The only thing about your issue, your system, which I have an issue with, is that this, got to get rid of the howler, which is what the DRS system is there. Well, I don't think it is there. I think the ICC will tell you it's there to improve the percentage of correct decisions, what they do. But what about in the situation, this is where I think the flaw in your argument is, if you only had one unsuccessful challenge to take care of the howler, what happens if a captain says, I'm pretty sure he's out here, guys, and they say, yeah, he's out. But as it turns out, he wasn't out. So they've used up their successful challenge, and then 20 minutes later, a howler is committed by that umpire, and the mechanism's there, the technology's there, and no one can use it.
Yeah, well, the first thing it would be great if umpires could use it at their whim. But, of course, they would use it every ball, like they do with run-outs and stumpings. And we've seen an experiment of it, and it was a disaster. The game, you got about 70 overs bowled in 6 hours. So it would slow the game up ridiculously. So that isn't going to work either. But having all these challenges is not the answer. So I'm saying just go back to, unless it is absolutely a clear-cut mistake, then that's where the technology is used for.
Marty, good morning.
Yes, man. Martin, I'm so pleased you're coming through. My question to you, though, is, and I think it's been a great show over the years, you've had a great vision and you've had great thoughts on the game. That my only hope is that when your health comes 100% right, that you actually do the role which Martin's didn't. Is that a possibility, whether you know it's New Zealand cricket or... to me, it's just an absolute lack of what's out there and what you could give.
No, interesting idea.
Look, I think really New Zealand cricket and I just have to accept that we're not compatible. For my health reasons...
In 5 years, you may feel different.
Oh, well, I'll never go into
never say never.
I'll never go into administration. You're trying to get me into the commentary box one hand and into a CEO's office on the other.
I've just learned in my years on this planet that old adage, never say never, is not a bad thing.
But, cricket is...
Life changes, things change.
Cricket is just a game, and now I've learnt that, life is actually a little bit more than cricket. It's about, it's about love and it's about family and it's about,
You'd make a good talkback host.
So that's where I'm going. I'm going into a wider field. And, I wish cricket well. I really do. I wish everyone in the game well, because it is a beautiful sport. If it stands for something, does New Zealand cricket stand for something at the moment? What does John Buchanan say about the integrity of New Zealand cricket? So as soon as they sort that out, they will be fine. And they will find really good CEOs down the line. For me, I'm just going to go and enjoy and smell the coffee. That is life.
So you haven't got anything specifically lined up where you want to get on? You want to become a lawyer or a doctor or a talkback host or something, do you? Or it sounds corny, but I just want to communicate what I'm experiencing, and I'm going to learn a lot as I go along. My natural, I suppose, line of communication at the moment is follicular lymphoma or cancer. Chemotherapy, healing. So, and also to the young, to the 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds that are harbouring emotions that are not healthy. I can talk to them. I can relate to them. And that's, if people want to use me in that role, then that's what I'm available for. I think I'm ready, and I think I've got the experience to share that. And, that's what I want to step out into, at least for the rest of the year. Good stuff, Martin. It's a pity we've only really scratched the surface of this very, very eminently readable book. If you're a cricket fan or a sports fan, and these issues which are very relevant across the board. Well, with the what's the price of it? $39.95, is it?
Yep, it's $39.95. It's everywhere. It's easy to spot. There's my ugly dial with my thingy on the top of my head.
Yes.
That's just before all my hair fell out too, I must say.
Well, Martin, I can tell a little story from last night. I was in the company of a couple of women talking to Martin Crowe last night, and one of them said to me, "Martin, you look so handsome the way you are without that rug on the top."
Yeah, well, I look like Jeff Crowe as well, and I'm not done with my advanced hair look, so
could be back.
My hair's growing back slowly. So, no, look out for me in a couple of months.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate your time very much. I know you've got other media commitments, so I'll let you go. And all the best for your book, and I hope it becomes a bestseller it deserves to.
Many thanks, Tom.
Thank you. It's coming up to 10 minutes away from 10 at Radio Sport. Well, that was a very different sporting interview, isn't it? Interviewed lots of people down through the years, but the brutal honesty of Martin Crowe is almost breathtaking, isn't it? That how I wish I could be so publicly kind of comfortable about talking about all my weaknesses, mistakes and errors and past things that have happened in one's life. It's quite extraordinary. Nice to get some talkback reaction to Martin's words here this morning, but we're running out of time here. We've sort of packed up a couple of ad breaks here to get him a bit more time. But just a couple of text messages, a pile of text messages coming in here. As a thankfully ex-Sky employee, I can concur with Martin. The only thing the organisation is concerned with is returns to shareholders. Yes, that's true. The only thing I'd say in defence of Sky is that they're an eminently successful company. They are a private company, and they're a very profitable company. If people didn't like what they were selling, they wouldn't be making the sort of profit that they are. So they must be doing something right. Someone saying it's a sad day for cricket that Martin Crowe isn't involved in cricket. Good luck with your health, says Steve. Please keep Martin for another hour. I'm in the car and I can't get out because I'm fixed to the radio listening to Marty. Someone else saying, gee, guys, how am I supposed to deliver parcels when I don't want to leave my van? This is good. Okay. Someone else, Hogan, you were a legend as I grew up and responsible for selling truckloads of DF Magnum bats. You've coped with much pressure and you're an icon. Good on you, Martin Crowe. Lots of nice stuff here coming in from Martin Crowe. And yes, I didn't get on to Max Cricket. But see, he's changed there. You know, he believes in 3-hour cricket, interestingly enough. It doesn't matter what you call it, T20 or Max. He believes in 3-hour cricket. I would like to have spoken to him about this idea that he's got of Max 60, where you have 2 innings, but you bowl 60 balls, and you don't have overs. And a guy can bowl for as many balls as he likes, and the captain can take him off and put him on whenever he wants to, and you only bowl from one end. Makes it easier and more cost-effective for television, not having to duplicate their elaborate camera formation at either end of the ground. 60 balls, you're no good after 3 balls, you get taken off and someone else comes in and bowls. And you do that twice. Each team has 2 innings, because he has this other theory that a game of cricket, going right back to its traditions, was founded on the idea of good sportsmanship and fair play. You get 2 cracks. If you don't do well first time, you have another chance. It might be just a bad day at the office and you get a bad ball, but you should have a second crack, which was part of his max cricket format, if you remember. And he wants to see that returned even in 3-hour cricket, but we didn't get a chance to talk about that.